It is about becoming radically honest with yourself, seeing your pain, and choosing to relate to yourself differently. Self-love is not a fluffy concept. It is a practice, and it is the foundation upon which your life experience is built. Today, I want to share with you 6 keynotes, the most important steps to understand when it comes to self-love. Self-love begins with awareness. The first step to self-love is awareness. You cannot love what you are unwilling to see. Most of us were conditioned to abandon parts of ourselves very early in life. We were taught that certain emotions, desires, or traits were unacceptable. And so we exiled them, but those rejected parts of you still exist, waiting for acknowledgement. Self-love begins when you become aware of the truth of yourself, not just the parts you like, but also the parts you resist. Awareness is the light that allows you to see the entire landscape of who you are. Accepting all of yourself, especially the unloved parts love without acceptance, is impossible. If you only love yourself when you succeed, when you look good, or when you behave correctly, then that love is conditional. True self-love is about embracing your flaws, your shadow, and your vulnerabilities. The inner child within you is not asking to be fixed. It is asking to be held. To practice self-love, you must stop the war with yourself. You must be willing to say, even if I am imperfect, I am still worthy of my own acceptance. Listening to your emotional guidance system, your emotions are not enemies to conquer. They are signals guiding you toward alignment with your authentic self. When you feel pain, it is not a punishment, it is communication. It is your being saying, something is out of harmony with me. Self-love means listening to those signals instead of suppressing them. When you allow yourself to feel and follow what your emotions are pointing toward, you build a relationship of trust with yourself. And trust is one of the purest forms of love. Creating safe internal space, most people seek love and safety outside of themselves. But self-love requires you to create an internal environment where you feel safe to be who you are. This means practicing self-compassion instead of self-criticism, gentleness instead of judgment. If your mind is a battlefield, you will never feel at peace. But if your mind becomes a sanctuary, you will always have a home within yourself. Creating this safe space is the groundwork for true self-love, because without it, you will continue to betray yourself for acceptance from others. Meeting your needs without shame. Self-love is not only about thoughts and emotions. It is also about action. To love yourself is to meet your own needs without guilt. You are not selfish for resting when you are tired, for setting boundaries when something violates you, or for choosing joy when others expect sacrifice. Many of us were conditioned to feel shame for having needs, but love cannot exist where shame rules. To love yourself is to say, my needs are valid and I honor them. When you meet your needs with care, you reinforce your worth. Choosing alignment over approval, perhaps the most important act of self-love, is choosing alignment with your truth, even when it costs you the approval of others. Too often we betray ourselves in exchange for belonging, but self-love is the realization that betraying yourself is the deepest form of abandonment. To live in alignment is to choose your inner truth over external validation. This is not selfish. It is the only way to live authentically. The world does not need more people who are pleasing everyone else while dying inside. It needs people who are whole, aligned, and real. Self-love is not about forcing yourself to feel good all the time. It is about committing to a relationship with yourself that is rooted in awareness, acceptance, compassion, trust, and alignment. It is about no longer abandoning yourself in the same ways others may have abandoned you. When you practice true self-love, you do not just heal yourself, you change the way you relate to the entire world. Most people believe that love is something we only extend when there is something admirable, pleasant, or acceptable present. This belief, however, is the very reason why self-love feels so elusive. The moment we hold conditions around when we are worthy of our own acceptance, we unconsciously wage a silent war against ourselves. Think of it this way. If you only allow yourself to feel love when you succeed, when you look attractive, when you meet social expectations, or when you are at your best behavior, then your love is fragile and conditional. It abandons you the moment you fall short. But the truth is that you cannot selectively love yourself. Either you commit to embracing all of yourself, or you live in a state of constant inner rejection. When you begin to practice true self-love, you must turn toward the parts of yourself that you have exiled. These parts may be the insecure child who was never chosen, the angry teenager who was told that anger was unacceptable, or the adult who feels shame for not living up to cultural standards of success. These fragments of your being do not vanish simply because you pretend they do not exist. They are still within you, seeking acknowledgement, desperately needing you to look at them instead of locking them away in the shadows. True love, then, requires courage. It asks you to walk into the hidden rooms of your psyche and say, I see you. I know you are here, you are part of me, and you deserve my presence. The paradox is that what we often resist most fiercely about ourselves is what needs our love the most. Maybe you criticize yourself for being too sensitive, too emotional, too slow, too needy, too angry, or too weak. You may try to fix these traits as if they are defects, but those traits often originated as adaptations to your early environment. Sensitivity might have been your way of surviving in a home where you had to detect danger quickly. Anger may have been your attempt to reclaim your boundaries when no one else respected them. Neediness may have been the voice of your inner child begging for the connection that was missing. When you reject these parts, you are not correcting yourself, you are abandoning yourself again in the same way you were once abandoned. Acceptance does not mean you will never grow or transform. In fact, growth becomes possible only when you stop fighting yourself. When a child is loved unconditionally, they naturally feel secure enough to mature, to explore, to change. But when a child is constantly criticized, their energy is wasted on survival. The same is true for your inner self. If you meet your flaws with judgment, you remain locked in resistance. If you meet them with compassion, you create the fertile ground where healing can occur naturally. So the act of embracing all of yourself, especially the parts that feel unlovable, is not weakness. It is the most profound strength you can practice. It is the foundation of unconditional self-love, where you stop demanding perfection as a prerequisite for worthiness, and instead begin to treat yourself with the same compassion you've always longed to receive. Your emotions are not random occurrences, nor are they flaws in your design. They are an intelligent guidance system designed to help you navigate your life. When you feel joy, it is a signal that you are in alignment with your authentic self and the path you are meant to follow. When you feel sadness, anger, or fear, it is not a mistake. It is a message that something in your life is out of harmony. The tragedy is that most of us were raised in environments where emotions were dismissed, shamed, or punished. We learned that crying was weakness, that anger was destructive, and that showing vulnerability made us unworthy of love. As a result, we began to mistrust our own emotional world, suppressing it, numbing it, or pretending it didn't exist. But every time you silence your emotions, you silence your inner compass, and in doing so, you lose connection to yourself. To practice true self-love, you must rebuild your relationship with your emotions. Instead of seeing them as enemies to conquer or obstacles to overcome, you must recognize them as sacred messengers. Each emotion carries vital information about your needs, your desires, and your boundaries. If you feel anxious, it may be your body's way of telling you that you are in an environment that doesn't feel safe. If you feel anger, it may be signaling that someone has crossed a boundary that matters to you. If you feel sadness, it may be a request to slow down and honor something you've lost or something that needs to be acknowledged. When you begin to approach emotions as communication rather than problems, you enter into a partnership with yourself. Think of your emotions as the language of your inner child. That part of you does not speak through logic or reason, it speaks through feelings. When you ignore those feelings, it is as if you are abandoning a child who is desperately tugging at your sleeve, asking for attention. But when you pause, when you listen, when you allow the emotion to be felt without judgment, you are saying to yourself, I hear you and you matter. That simple act of listening builds trust within yourself, and trust is the foundation of love. Many people fear that if they let themselves fully feel their emotions, they will become overwhelmed, lost in a spiral they cannot escape. But emotions are not meant to drown you. They are meant to move through you like waves. It is your resistance to them that makes them grow heavier. When you resist sadness, it festers into depression. When you resist anger, it mutates into resentment. But when you allow them space, when you sit with them, breathe through them, and honor their presence, they naturally complete their cycle. They rise, they express, and they pass. Self-love requires that you stop treating your emotions as obstacles and start treating them as allies. They are the whispers of your inner truth, the indicators of what is working and what is not. If you want to live in alignment, you must allow your emotional guidance system to have a voice. Listening to your emotions does not mean being ruled by them. It means partnering with them, letting them guide you toward choices and environments that honor your authentic self. This partnership is what allows you to walk through life not as someone disconnected and lost, but as someone deeply attuned, whole, and real. Most people spend their entire lives trying to find safety in the external world. They believe that if they find the right partner, the right home, the right job, or the right approval from others, they will finally feel secure. But the truth is that no external circumstance can ever fully guarantee safety, because the external world is always in flux. People change, situations shift, and nothing is ever completely stable. This is why self-love must include the creation of an internal sanctuary, a place inside yourself where you feel safe to simply be who you are. Without this inner sanctuary, you will forever seek validation and protection outside of yourself, and that search will keep you in a cycle of dependency and disappointment. Creating a safe internal space begins with how you treat yourself in your own mind. Imagine living with a roommate who criticizes your every move, who mocks your mistakes, who tells you that you will never be good enough. That environment would be unbearable, and yet many of us create that exact dynamic inside our own minds every single day. We berate ourselves for not meeting expectations, we shame ourselves for having needs, and we attack ourselves for falling short of perfection. The result is that our inner world feels hostile. It becomes a battlefield where we are both the attacker and the attacked. Self-love cannot exist in that environment. To love yourself, you must transform your inner dialogue into one that is compassionate, supportive, and kind. This does not mean lying to yourself or pretending that everything is fine. It means shifting the way you respond to your own imperfections and pain. When you make a mistake, instead of immediately turning to self-condemnation, you practice gentleness. You remind yourself that mistakes are part of learning. When you feel pain, instead of dismissing it or telling yourself to get over it, you acknowledge it the way you would acknowledge a friend's suffering. When you struggle, you offer yourself encouragement instead of criticism. This practice is about creating a relationship with yourself where you feel safe to be human. An inner sanctuary also means allowing space for all of your emotions without judgment. If your mind immediately shames you for feeling sad or angry, then your inner world is not safe. A safe inner space is one where emotions are welcomed, processed, and honored rather than suppressed. It is a space where you give yourself permission to be fully authentic. This is crucial because when you do not feel safe with yourself, you will constantly betray yourself in order to be accepted by others. You will silence your truth, deny your needs, and live inauthentically, all in the hope that someone else will give you the safety you refuse to provide for yourself. The more you cultivate this safe internal environment, the less desperate you become for external approval. You begin to walk through life knowing that no matter what happens outside, you can return to a place within where you are held with compassion and acceptance. That is the essence of true inner freedom. Creating this inner sanctuary is not about building walls to shut the world out. It is about creating a foundation where your authenticity can thrive. It is the soil in which real self-love can take root, because only in safety can love grow without conditions. Most of us were conditioned from an early age to feel ashamed of having needs. We were praised when we were self-sufficient, quiet, or when we put others first, and we were criticized, rejected, or even punished when we expressed hunger, sadness, anger, or a desire for attention. This conditioning creates adults who are disconnected from their own needs and who often feel guilty for meeting them. As a result, many people believe that taking care of themselves is selfish, indulgent, or undeserved. But in truth, to meet your needs without shame is one of the purest acts of self-love because it affirms your worthiness of care. Every human being has needs. These needs are not flaws or weaknesses. They are simply part of being alive. You need food, water, and rest. You need emotional nourishment in the form of connection, understanding, and love. You need boundaries to protect your well-being. You need joy, creativity, and self-expression to feel alive. When these needs are not met, your body, mind, and soul begin to suffer. Neglecting your needs does not make you stronger. It makes you more fragmented, disconnected, and resentful. But when you meet your needs with respect and consistency, you send yourself a very different message. I am worth taking care of. I matter. That message is the essence of self-love. To understand how important this is, imagine a child who comes to you and says, "I'm hungry." If you respond by saying, "You're being selfish, you don't deserve to eat," that child would not only feel hurt, but also internalize the belief that their needs are wrong. Now imagine you feed that child, give them nourishment, and assure them that it's okay to be hungry. That child feels safe, valued, and worthy of love. The truth is that the child in this example is you. Every time you dismiss your own needs, you reinforce the message that you are not worthy of care. Every time you meet your needs with compassion, you reinforce the opposite, that you are worthy, valid, and deserving of love. Meeting your needs without shame also requires the courage to set boundaries. When something violates you, when someone crosses a line, or when an environment depletes you, it is not self-love to remain silent and endure. It is self-love to protect yourself by communicating your limits. Boundaries are not about pushing others away. They are about protecting the conditions in which you can thrive. If a flower does not receive sunlight and water, it will wither. Your needs are that sunlight and water, and only by honoring them can you grow. One of the greatest shifts you can make in your relationship with yourself is to stop apologizing for your needs. Resting when you are tired is not laziness, it is wisdom. Seeking connection when you feel lonely is not weakness, it is humanity. Choosing joy even when others expect sacrifice is not selfish, it is authenticity. To meet your needs without shame is to live in alignment with the truth of what you are, a being who is worthy of love, care, and fulfillment simply because you exist. Perhaps the most profound act of self-love is choosing to live in alignment with your truth, even when it means losing the approval of others. From the moment we are children, we are taught subtly or directly that belonging depends on compliance. We learn to smile when we are unhappy, to say yes when we mean no, to follow paths that others have chosen for us, and to mold ourselves into what will be most acceptable. This training is so deeply ingrained that by the time we reach adulthood, many of us have forgotten who we truly are. We carry masks, roles, and identities that please others but suffocate our authenticity. And yet, every time you betray your truth for approval, you abandon yourself. You leave yourself behind in order to be chosen by someone else. This is the deepest wound of all because it is abandonment disguised as love. Living in alignment means listening to the quiet inner voice that tells you what feels right and what does not. It is choosing to honor your intuition, even when it leads you away from the crowd. It is being willing to stand in your authenticity, even when others misunderstand or disapprove. This is not an easy path, because approval from others often feels like safety. To walk away from it can feel like stepping into the unknown. But alignment is the only place where true safety exists, because it is the only place where you are not divided against yourself. When you are in alignment, your thoughts, emotions, and actions harmonize. You no longer live in conflict between what you feel inside and what you project outside. That wholeness is what creates real strength. The cost of seeking approval is high. It may buy you temporary acceptance, but it robs you of authenticity, fulfillment, and peace. You may gain others' admiration, but inside you will feel hollow because you know that the person being admired is not the real you. Approval is conditional, fragile, and always shifting. Alignment, however, is steady. It may not always earn applause, but it earns you something far more valuable, self-trust. When you know you will not betray yourself, when you know that your own choices reflect your truth, you begin to feel a profound sense of stability and confidence that no external validation can provide. This is why choosing alignment over approval is not selfish. It is an act of service to the world. When you live authentically, you give others permission to do the same. When you refuse to betray yourself, you break the cycle of false belonging that has kept humanity trapped in conformity and fear. The world does not need more people who are praised for their compliance while secretly suffocating inside. The world needs people who are whole, real, and aligned, because only those people can bring forth the unique gifts and contributions they were born to give. So self-love in its highest form asks this of you, to choose your truth even if it costs you approval, to honor your alignment even if it means standing alone, because in truth, when you are aligned, you are never truly alone. You are with yourself fully and completely, and that is the most important belonging of all. When we bring all of these truths together, we can see that self-love is not a single act or a superficial affirmation. It is a lifelong relationship with yourself. It begins with awareness, with the courage to truly see who you are beyond the masks and the conditioning. It deepens with acceptance, when you stop waging war against your flaws and begin embracing even the parts of yourself that feel unworthy. It strengthens when you learn to listen to your emotions, honoring them as guidance rather than treating them as obstacles. It grows when you create an inner sanctuary, a safe space where compassion replaces judgment. It becomes embodied when you meet your needs without shame, realizing that honoring yourself is not selfish but essential. And ultimately, it is solidified when you choose alignment over approval, standing in your truth even when others do not understand. This path of self-love is not easy. It requires you to unlearn patterns of self-abandonment and to face discomfort that you may have avoided for years. It asks for courage, honesty, and tenderness all at once. But it is the most important work you will ever do, because your relationship with yourself is the foundation for every other relationship and every experience you will ever have. When you abandon yourself, the world mirrors abandonment back to you. When you choose yourself, the world reflects alignment, wholeness, and authenticity. Self-love is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming whole. It is about saying yes to your humanity in all its complexity. It is about being willing to meet yourself again and again, in joy and in pain, in clarity and in confusion, and saying each time, "You are worthy of my presence." This kind of love does not just transform your inner world. It transforms how you show up in the outer world. You become more grounded, more authentic, and more connected, and in doing so, you inspire others to do the same. The most important thing to do when it comes to self-love is to stop abandoning yourself. Everything else flows from there. When you commit to being with yourself in awareness, acceptance, compassion, care, and alignment, you discover that self-love is not something to strive for. It is something to practice, moment by moment, until it becomes your natural state. And when it does, you realize that loving yourself is not just about you. It is the foundation upon which you create a life, relationships, and a world that are rooted in truth and in love.